Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is KPZ. You're here on the home of the Slightly Above Average Ship Review. Got the last of the British battlecruisers in early access for you today. We are in the Tier 7 battlecruiser, the Hawke. I do want to let you know a little postscript. I did have the damage and XP record in the Tiger and the Rook on WoW's builds since those videos came out. It appears that someone has passed my XP record, maybe has a pending passing of my damage record in the Tiger. That's based on what I'm seeing on WoW's builds, but your mileage may vary. Anyway, here we're on Greece. It is a domination match. We're in the Hawke, and I believe we are top tier. I didn't bother looking at the team map or the team listing because I was busy talking. So the ship in the title card is the HMS Hawke, a Edgar-class protected cruiser launched in 1891, sunk by a U-boat in 1914. There was another HMS Hawke slated to be a Minotaur-class cruiser, which was never built. So the Hawke is a battle cruiser. I think they just, Wargaming recycled a name. We do have our range build commander, Andrew Cunningham, behind the wheel, or in the helm, or whatever you want to call it. But I definitely recommend John Arbuthnot Fisher when he becomes active at the end of the week, if you did the calendar and unlocked it. I, in theory, have the resources to fully max him out as soon as he comes into the game. So I will do another review of all these ships once I have him in there, maybe after a month or so. We'll see what the next campaign involves. Here, we're moving out, and I'm just trying to spam a little bit. Battlecruiser doesn't have great armor, good speed, kind of really wonky torpedoes with a long arming time. But they do relatively okay damage for a non-destroyer. And I found the guns to be mostly pretty accurate. When they hit hard. But as you can see, sometimes they leave a little bit to be desired. In terms of the shell grouping, we did get a Citadel hit here on forgot the glasses. Did get a Citadel hit on the Bismarck, but we are taking incoming fire from all over the place. I also want to mention we will be doing a stat comparison of the advent of the new WoW's builds. So as we continue to shell the Bismarck, if you haven't gone to WoW's builds yet, I encourage you to go over there and make a profile and take advantage of all they have to offer there. Mostly stats. I won't call them super advanced, but they're better than nothing. And what I mean by that is, I got to go to wiki.wargaming.net to tell you the maximum dispersion of this ship is 206 meters. The initial shell velocity of HE is 792 meters per second, and the shells weigh 929 kilos. The AP shells have initial shell velocity of 747 meters per second, and the shell weight is 1,080 kilos. That's from wiki.wargaming.net. All right, also from WoW's builds, the damage record in this ship is masterfully insane, and we won't get anywhere close to that. 243,002 damage, and the base XP 4,433, both by someone named Ruben Basilisk, who is apparently a player from Germany. He had a 6-kill game. So Excelsior to you, sir. Very well done. And in doing that and switching over, I ruined my stat comparison. So I'll have to get that back up. In this ship, we are going to shoot at every target of opportunity we can see, simply because you can't let anybody get too close to you in these ships. They don't have great armor. They don't react well to that kind of stuff. So that's just me. That's just my advice. And again, I think we've done really well in the Tiger. We did really well in the Rook. At one point, we had damage records out there. I'll put those games up against anybody. I have no shame in those games. However, the other ships, the Renown, and here in the Hawke, we're going to find the games we have are more pedestrian. And I think that perhaps these ships, more than the other two, really need John Arbuthnot Fisher, the specialty commander, to really do well. Although I say that, and some cat is out there with a game in the ship where he did 242,000 damage. I'll add a codicil onto that. I think an average player or a slightly above average player might benefit more from a battle cruiser commander than just getting lucky out there with a battleship commander. I would have loved to have had a big game in the ship. Played about 10 matches, just didn't happen. There were a lot of games where I was getting outranged or burnt down. The armor just can't stand up in a lot of situations. Here we create a bad situation for ourselves by running aground. But we are, due to a little bit of angling, going to mitigate some of that for ourselves. We're backing, and I think I'm turning in the wrong direction because I frequently do this. And I'm like, wait a minute, I am turning in the wrong direction. So then I'm going to frantically try to go back the other way. Now, it's entirely possible that with more matches under my belt in the ship, I could have come up with a better game. But I literally just got it the last time I put a video out. I literally got this ship right before that. I was super busy yesterday, super busy today. Didn't really have time to get a ton of matches in. I would say, how many matches do you judge a ship's performance by? I would say 25 matches. So we did 10. 10 is better than none or one or whatever. But if I come out of the box and had a 190K game, you'd be seeing it after one match. So before you give up on any ship, I would say give it 25 good matches. So I'm going to give the Hawke and the Renown other chances with John Fisher behind the wheel. And like I said, I'll have him fully maxed out from the jump. So I think I'll get a better feeling for how good these ships are or are not. And a lot of other times the matches are really dependent on the enemies. Are they giving you a lot of broadside or not? And are you taking advantage of the broadside you're given? So right now we got about 64,000 damage. We're going to get a Shores broadside. This Shores commander was messing with the speed and not just going full speed ahead in a straight line. So as a result, our shells land a little bit forward of where I like them to impact. And so as a result, we don't get the big numbers I was hoping for on that hit. In fact, we just got about 9,000 damage off that. I was hoping to dev strike him and put him out of the match. So again, sometimes it's RNG, sometimes it's just what the enemy is doing. Humans are very unpredictable, so sometimes you're thinking, oh, he's going to keep going straight, and for some reason the guy decides to brake or turn or whatever. That guy didn't know I was shooting at him. There, he stays still in the water, we catch back up with him, Citadel hit, kill number one, 78,000 damage here in the Hawke. I have found that when these shells hit, they hit pretty hard. You saw that Citadel earlier on a battleship. Here, I'm trying to line up the Odin, although he appears to be turning away slightly. So I'm like, well, what about the North Carolina? And he goes dark right as I'm about to shoot. So I think those shells are going to land a little bit forward of where I would like them to have impacted. So as a result, we're not going to get a lot of big hits there. And we didn't, So it just is what it is. But the same things I said about all these other battle cruisers, I'll say about the Hawke. It's got big guns. Generally, they're accurate. It's quick. It's got torpedoes, but they have a huge dead zone in between you, your ship, and when the torpedo's armed. I still don't understand exactly how the turning thing works in the torpedoes, whether that just describes the action they make coming out of the ship, or whether you can actually maneuver them at some point. I just don't know the answers to that. And I haven't really seen anything that describes how you would do that, so I just don't know. But in all these ships, you're able to bully down-tier ships. Here, we're going to come out from behind this island and trying to size up North Carolina, and then I'm like, hey, what about the Boise? And I go cruiser hunting, and I think that was a dumb idea. I should have stayed with the North Carolina. It's a soft-skin battleship, and yeah, it's got big guns, but it doesn't have a ton of armor. And by the way, if you have the Leviathan, apparently the Leviathan, which I do have, is a reskinned North Carolina. So, I guess it's just another Tier 6 U.S. battleship that isn't the Florida, and that can only be a good thing. Here, I'm trying to go behind these islands, give myself a little bit of cover. That looks like a pretty good salvo. But again, even though that was a pretty good hit there, We didn't get that Citadel hit, didn't take out the Boise. Now I'm worried about the North Carolina going for my broadside before we can get behind the island, but thankfully that doesn't come to pass. Now I put myself in a situation where I'm trying to jump shells over the rocks here. And as you can see, didn't totally work. That rear battery definitely impacted the rocks. So that's another piece of advice, generally speaking. Don't stay stuck in the binocular view. Come back out of it after you fire to see if your shells are actually making it over the obstacles near you. Because I know I'm as guilty as anybody. You're shooting and you don't realize that your shells are just hitting the cliff or the rock or the mountain or whatever it is. All right, here another cruiser comes out. Is that a Suzuya? Yeah, it is a Suzuya. And we will have a Suzuya video coming up for you guys next week. Anyway, we get a pretty good hit there. Secondaries kick in. I turn in to avoid the torpedoes. And we're just going to put our front turrets on the Suzuya and get the reload. And hopefully we're going to dev strike him and take him out. Or at least smash him in the Citadel and take him out. So I think I'm pretty good right here. We line them up. We erase the Suzuya with the Citadel hit. I should have slowed down and turned in more. So we do get taken out by the Suzuya commander. All right, while our ship is sinking, let's go back to WoW's builds for our peer comparison in the Tier 7 Hawke, which is in early access. Well, they took away the numbers that tell you how many ships there are at Tier 7 battleships. There's a ton of battleships at Tier 7. Okay, so I can't tell you what the placing is anymore. All right, looking at hit points, number one ship, Flandre, 75,400. We're scrolling down the page, and the Hawke is number 2. We didn't have to scroll that far. 73,800 hit points. Armor piercing damage. Number one ship is Odin, 9,400 per shell. Oops, pardon me. I sorted it the wrong way. Georgia is number 1. Quit unsorting me. Good grief. 15,750 for the Georgia. The Hawke is probably 10 below that at 12,600, tied with the Lion. Max speed, number 1 is Champagne, 34 knots in the water. The Hawke, again, is about 10 down, 30.5 knots, tied with Tirpitz. Traverse of the turrets, Champagne is number 1 at 7 degrees per second. Hawke is tied for third with Vittorio Veneto, Roma, Brandenburg, Zeiton, Vanguard, Atlantico, and Lenin at 6 degrees per second. Max AA damage per second. Number 1 is Georgia, 649. The Hawke is not on the first page. We're scrolling. The Hawke is about 10 from the bottom, 368 damage per second. Just above Kansas at 340, just below Bismarck at 374. Look at that. Here we are on the scoreboard. 1 medal, 2 big kills, 2472 base XP. I think that's a pretty good game in the Hawke. We were top tier, but it wasn't spectacular. You can see we ended up with 119,000 damage and the high caliber medal. Anyway, take a look at those progress ribbons. Let's go back into the port, folks, and take a look at the ship. All right, in terms of the upgrades, early access ship, aiming systems mod 1, damage control system mod 2, concealment system mod 1, and main battery mod 3. The Hawke is fully upgraded. Taking a look at the loadout, you got 3 charges of the repair party, 2 charges of the engine boost, and 2 charges of defensive AA fire, which I recommend over the enhanced secondary targeting, which I do not recommend. All right, we were using the rare battle booster for cooldown time and movement speed. And of course, we're running the epic ship XP booster because we're trying to unlock the next ship. We got the special Dreadnought flag flying on the battle cruisers. And The camouflage, hello. Type 2 temporary camo. The permanent camo not yet available again. Hopefully that goes hot when these ships are out of EA. Survivability, 73,800 hit points. We already saw number 2 at the tier. 20% torpedo damage reduction, which sucks. 3 triple 406mm turrets, 18.8 kilometer firing range, 26.4 second reload. Is that 28.6 second turn time? HE shells, 5950 max damage with a 45% fire chance. AP shells, 12,600 max damage. 2 sets of secondaries. Range of both is 5.8 kilometers. First set of 8 twin 114s. Reloads every 5 seconds. 1,700 HE shell damage with an 8% fire chance. The second set of 4x2 152s. Rather long reload at 12 seconds. They do 2150 HE shell max damage with a 9% fire chance. But it is the number, and especially the long reload. I don't recommend a secondary build. 4 torpedo launchers, 2 on each side of the ship. Looks like they reload every 80 seconds. Max damage 15,867. 8 kilometer range at 61 knots. The detectability is 1,300 meters. Really more to catch other ships off guard. AA defense, you got a lot of AA here. Most of it 2.5 kilometers and in. Your dual purpose 114 millimeter secondaries are your longest ranging AA. Your best AA is the Bofors Mark IV, 227 damage per second. But again, don't be fooled by that big AA number. Maneuverability, 31.4 knots, 910 meter turning circle, 16.9 second rudder shift time. And concealment, 13.3 on the surface, 10.7 from the air, 14.3 when firing in smoke. Obviously, with a maxed out standard camo, those concealment numbers are going to drop a little bit. Here in the stats, we played 10 matches, won 5, lost 5. Really terrible main battery and torpedo accuracy. Under 40% for the main battery, under 5% for the torpedoes. Kill death ratio, 0.5. That's not great. What is great was the last game you saw us playing, which is our most ships killed and best damage and best XP. Do I think there's more in the capability in this ship for the average player? Obviously I do. I think a good game in this ship would probably be around 150,000. All right, here in the armor viewer, a large above water citadel. Double yikes. That is freaking scary, folks. Turrets are also equally scary. The only armored part of the turret is this very heavily armored but rather flat-faced turret face, meaning not a ton of angle to that. So those things are going to get knocked out pretty easily if hit from the side. All right, putting the casemate armor back on, it's just frosting on a piece of cake. Torpedo protection, you can see there is a slight amount of spaced armor effect there, but it's not going to really do a whole lot, I don't think, unless your opponent has really low caliber guns. Well, I wouldn't count on that to do a whole lot. The bow here is pretty standard, so let's say 25 millimeters. And the keel is more heavily armored, but that isn't going to do you any good. Anyway, rather lackluster armor profile of the Hawke. Here's the commander we've been using for all these battle cruisers in early access. Andrew Cunningham, the same build we ran on the rest of the ships. It is the build I recommend until Sunday, when John Arbuthnot Fisher will be available for you to use. And I recommend putting him in these ships. He's literally built for them. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. Maybe when we get Fisher behind the helm, we'll get a better match. I'll bring that to you here on the home of the Slightly Above Average Ship Review. Don't forget to hit the like button or comment or subscribe below. I'll see you on the next video, everybody. Thanks for watching.